Wake 'em up! Hi, how's it going? It's me, Julio, and today I got with me brother Paul, and we're going to be talking about the difference between Christianity and Buddhism. So my first couple questions for you is, what is Buddhism and when did it start?
Well, Buddhism actually comes from the word Buddha, which means enlightened one. There's a religion that has to do with reaching nirvana, or what they would call enlightenment. Buddha lived 500 years before Jesus was born.
Wow. And the meaning of enlightened one, isn't that like a good teacher or somebody who lived morally good?
No,
So
it
what does
doesn't
it
mean
mean?
that either. It just means that they have reached nirvana, or my way of looking at it is they've reached the end of the road. They've reached their concept of perfection.
Okay, there we go. So their concept of perfection, and so what would that look like?
Their concept of perfection is the end of reincarnation.
Which is a curse. Reincarnation is a curse.
Yeah, so they look at, if you're not going to be reincarnated, so their goal is to, unfortunately, die and not be reborn. They want to reach nothingness, which is nirvana.
Yeah.
And to not be reborn, you become part of nirvana, which means it's a goal of death.
Yeah.
It's a sad, sorry truth, but...
Yeah. Okay, I thought that it meant that someone who's enlightened is somebody who lived morally perfect. So then they go out to be this energy source. And then for those who weren't able to reach nirvana or the enlightened one stage, they have to be reincarnated as a curse. And they got to keep retrying trying over
There
and over
are
and over.
some truths
Okay.
to what you're saying.
So there's probably some sects that believe
Well, there's
something like that.
they do believe that if you haven't alleviated your own suffering, you haven't followed the right path.
Yeah.
We'll get into that more when we
Yeah,
talk
gotcha.
about their belief structure. But
Gotcha.
yes,
All right.
it's kind of in there too.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So, who is the core leader of Buddhism, and what is the story behind that?
Well, Siddhartha Gautama, it was a prince in the country of what was India, and now we call it Nepal. His dad kept him from seeing any suffering, so he wasn't allowed to see anybody grow old. He wasn't allowed to see anybody get sick. He wasn't allowed to see any poor people. Anything that you can picture as suffering was hidden from him.
Wow.
So he gets married, he has a kid, and at some point he decides to go take a look into the world, and he's just blown away with the concept of what suffering is. He has,
Yeah.
and because of this, he starts to go out and try to discover ways to stop suffering. So he joins these different sects of Hinduism, and he tries to come up with ways to stop suffering, and nothing he does works. He even joins this group of ascetics, where basically they wear almost no clothing. They deny themselves almost everything in the world, and he was considered the best of all of the ascetics, and he doesn't feel like he can achieve what his goal is, and he leaves them, and of course they're angry with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't accept. They don't accept the concept of caste. So you understand that. So
Caste
there is
is- what
the
is that?
caste is the different levels of society.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of stuff all goes away when you're seeking nirvana. Doesn't matter what level you're born into.
Mm-hmm.
It matters that you're seeking the right path. So that's for him. Now he later goes and he meditates under something called a Bodhi tree, and they believe this is where Siddhartha has an evil spirit tempt him as he's meditating, and he finds his way to enlightenment there. Eventually, the spirit just gives up, and he reaches enlightenment. and becomes the Buddha.
Okay. And now see that's kind of interesting because that reminds me of scripture when Jesus is being tempted by Satan, and he's being tempted, and Jesus passed these temptations without failing, without falling into them. So that's kind of a little bit of a
The big difference is Jesus does it with scripture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and Buddha just does it by ignoring the evil spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just ignoring it. Yeah. So he's trying to end suffering, though. Or he believes to. How does he exactly end it, though?
That's a good question. He's ending it for himself. Is what it really comes down to.
Okay, so it's not like he's going out to help people. He's just isolating himself away from the suffering.
That's what it ends up being.
Okay.
They might think that they're trying to end suffering for the world, but really it's only for them individually,
Gotcha.
which in many ways is selfish.
Yeah, it is. And then Christ causes us to help those in need, right? Help the homeless, help the poor, help the widows. So that's what we're called to do. So in that sense, it's not just for us to be saved. We reach Christ, we're forgiven. Now we just stay to ourselves. He's calling us to be light and calling us to go out and reach the lost. So it's a big difference. Big difference in that. Do Buddhism have a core teaching, a core book that they look to?
Well, they have a book that has been called Tripitaka, or they call it the Pali Canon. Pali is the language that it was written in. Today we call it the Three Baskets of Wisdom. The book's divided into rules for monks and nuns, actual experiences of Buddha, and explanations of the teachings of Buddha they call sutras. There are many sects of Buddhism. Some even have their own texts, such as the Tibetan monks who have the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's a lot of different. I don't like the idea of calling them scriptures, but I guess they would consider them their holy writings.
Their writings, yeah. There's separate writings for them, and I think there's even way more. Right? They got a lot of.
There are, and they can incorporate other religious beliefs. They can incorporate some Hindu Vedas into their belief, but more so they stick more so with the Three Baskets of Wisdom.
Okay.